Salutations, fellow hobbyists. Yes, you are a hobbyist. And I am Toyama.23, and welcome to Episode 3, the final episode of my bite-sized tutorial series where I guide you through building your Gundam plastic model, as we hobbyists call Gunpla. I grew up building this kit, and now that I've come a long way, there are things I wish I could go back in time to inform myself when I started the hobby. And one of them is, well, a few of them is, in episode 3, how to read the manual, use those 5 tools, and build. Do watch the video till the very end, because I'll also demonstrate how to pen align. Yay! And a little disclaimer, the nub removal techniques demonstrated here are for basic kits, not clear kits or special coated that are not undergated. So first, let's begin with reading the manual. Let's look at the parts list, a page that shows all the runners. This page helps you make sure you have everything and helps you identify which runners are needed. For example, this here is runner G. It will be marked here on these flat areas. X2 means there should be 2 of them. X on the parts mean they are access parts that are not needed. Often Bandai would recycle older runners and add different parts around them. For example, this runner K is from the older RX-78-2 Gundam, which even says that here if you look at the runners. So once you've completed your build and there are still parts on the runners, don't worry, you're not missing anything unless it's not crossed off here. Finally, this shows what type of plastic you're dealing with. ABS means acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. Wow! PS is polystyrene, and PE polyethylene, also known as polycaps. So you know if certain paints work with them or not. Always try painting on an excess of the runners first to see how the paint reacts. I once had a paint melt a piece of my plastic kit. I'm not joking, see? Now, the manuals are pretty self-explanatory, but there are some things to be aware of, especially when you're building older kits that don't have as much English text like the newer manuals, such as these symbols. They'll take a long time to explain each and every one of these symbols, but I'll leave a link below if you need them translated. I will, however, explain some of them as we go through this tutorial. And for demonstration purposes, I am using my LX 2.0. And I'm going to demonstrate page 8 because it has most of those symbols on it. If it's your first time, I recommend following the instructions from where it begins. Later, with more experience, you can choose where you're going to begin. But also bear in mind, some kits require you to follow the steps in the manual chronologically to a T. Cause I can't tell what kit you're working on. Perhaps you can comment below. I recommend following the manual. Another thing to be aware of, especially when building master grade, focus on building a part. Maybe it's only the hands or part of the inner frame for one day, or just snipping out the pilot figures. Make little goals. Pace yourself. Don't go for the I'm going to build the entire Gundam today mentality. I know you can do it in a day. I don't doubt it. I don't want you to burn out. Keep the hobbyist alive, right? I understand you're excited, but that's also why I say patience is the key to building Gunpla. Take your time. Savor the build. It takes me a month to finish a master grade on average. So study the instruction manual. Once you know where you're going to begin, arrange your runners alphabetically. Look for this part of the runners to identify them. Side note, some manuals lay out which runners you'll need to build the parts, like this LX 2.0 instruction manual. You notice here? But even without this, arranging the runners alphabetically always helps. Now step 1, I need runner G and parts 17 and 18. And I'll use the tools in order of my last video. So first, put the box down here and with my heavy duty nipper, cut the pieces out. Notice where I'm cutting them? Yeah. Leave some excess on the parts. I also need PC1, which is the polycap sheet, which is mostly joints and the softest runner you have. Now that I have all 3 pieces free from the runner, I'll use my finer nipper to cut the nubs, aka the gate, off. Now there are 3 little tips on using these single bladed nippers. 1, you'll want to cut inward and not out. This is the outside and this is in, so inwards, because of the way the blade is. If you cut too much off while you're cutting inwards, it will be more forgiving also. And 2, use the nubs to your advantage. Notice how they fit the nippers nicely. Align your nipper on with them. And 3, when you cut, press slowly. Let the blade do its thing. If you press down fast or just bite the piece, your hand shakes and could give it harder stress marks or damage your fancy nipper. There you have it, 3 tips for using the finer nipper. So, because this piece is round, I'll use my hobby knife to shave out some excess stub. Looking good. Now looking at the nub marks here, there's some stress marks, so I'll now use my sanding sponge to file down the stress mark. Now to use it, go in one direction. You're not washing dishes here. And you don't want to scratch the piece. This thing is great for rounded edges. I don't recommend scraping with a hobby knife. It dulls the blade every time and adds stress to the plastic. Now I'll apply that with the other pieces too. Now assembling the pieces, follow these numbers. If I do it the opposite way, I'll be adding stress to the piece here when pushing it in. It might compromise the strength of the piece. Now that this piece is done, note this, it needs to be done twice. So fast forward. Now keep these pieces aside, they'll come into play later. Next, I'll make these, so again, cut them off the runners. Now, this means pay attention to the part's orientation. These little double arrows means the parts should point out that way when assembling. Now, notice the symbol? It means this part assembles later. Don't put the piece in first, save it for last, before the next part. Now, if I put this piece in first, it will seal and I won't be able to put these other 2 pieces in. Okay, looks good. I will have to do that again. And obviously, don't cut this. Next we move to tree. We need P's N2, 3, and 4. Now let's deal with N2 first. Before cutting N2 off the runner, notice not to cut this piece off. That's not a nub, only this is a nub. Next we have something that is very important to add to our building vocabulary, which is undergate, or undergating, or undercut. I often use the term undergating. If you look closely, you'll notice the nubs connect a little indirectly onto the piece. The reason Bandai does this is to hide the nub marks. Often when parts are undergated, it's usually a pre-painted part. This runner is painted with a metallic finish, and when you cut the parts out, no matter how sharp the blade is, there will be a bad nub mark, because there is no paint at the cut area. To solve this problem, they strategically place the nubs on the underside of the piece. That way, the bad nub mark is hidden. So you need to cut the piece off like such. Whenever you see these silver triangles in a manual, it means undergate. If you only cut this part and not this, sometimes the part won't fit together perfectly as the nubs can act like a wedge. A little tip, when you're getting titanium coating or gold coated kits, make sure they are undergated first. That's also why many hobbyists also stay away from the Phoenix Master Grade, because it's mostly not undergated. On the flip side, the high grade Akatsuki is mostly undergated. If bling's your thing, or you don't care about the nub marks, then that's fine too. Now I'm going to fast forward tree 4 because it does not need much explanation. But tree 5, you might wonder, where is this part here? Where is tree 1 and tree 2 on the runners? Well, it's not on the runners. They are what you did earlier here. Now, what are these snap things? Well, listen to this. Some ASMR for you there. Ooh. Well, that's the sound they need to make when you join them together. That snap is the pieces locking in place. So be sure to get that satisfying snap. Don't worry, parts breaking sound very different. Now I'm almost done with both arms. Now finally, the last symbol I'm going to share with you is this one here. This means either F17 or F15 can be used, so you choose. I'm gonna use F17 to form a thumbs up. So, did you like this video? Please give it a thumbs up by hitting the like button. I hope this video helps you on your hobbyist journey. Speaking of journey, need to grow your YouTube channel? Install TubeBuddy with my affiliate link below. It's what I use to grow my channel. Also, please subscribe to the channel to not miss out on more Gunpla content and future tutorials. Subscribe yet? You will hear a wow if you did. Wow. Good. Let's talk about panel lining with Gundam markers. So, the rule to panel lining is you'll need 3 colors: black, gray, brown, and what you're doing is highlighting the grooves on the kit. What many do is black for the dark color parts, like I'm using black for the blue here, and then rub off the excess with either your finger or an eraser, and gray for the white areas. So what's brown for? Often we use brown on yellow or red pieces, but personally I don't like the looks of it, so I stick with gray or sometimes black on yellow and red pieces, because Gunpla is freedom. My wife, she likes it when only black is used on the entire kit. If that's your jam, why not? do pen line your kits. If you don't, just look at this. It screams to you, doesn't it? Pen aligning really enhances the look of your kits. Alright, this is the conclusion of my How to Build Gundam episode 3.0 plus 1.0 pen aligning tutorial. If you missed out part 1 and 2, check out the playlist I've made. And before you go off to finish your build project, guys, fellow hobbyists, keep things awesome, keep the hobby going, and keep the hobbyist alive. I am Toyama23, signing out.